The hackers thought they were unstoppable, broadcasting their victory live as they drained bank accounts and crashed servers worldwide. What they didn't know was that the obsolete security system they'd bypassed was being monitored by someone who'd spent 15 years hunting people exactly like them. And she'd just been waiting for them to make one mistake. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden expertise in digital warfare, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today? And if you believe stories about unsung heroes deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the basement office of Meridian Financial Group, casting harsh shadows across rows of outdated computer monitors. Sarah Chen sat at her desk, surrounded by towers of servers that most people assumed were relics from a bygone era. At 45, she appeared unremarkable to her colleagues, another mid-level IT employee maintaining legacy systems that everyone had forgotten about. Her official title was Legacy Security Analyst, a position that had been created 3 years ago when the company needed someone to babysit their old banking infrastructure. The executives upstairs saw it as a necessary evil, keeping ancient systems running until they could afford a complete overhaul. What they didn't realize was that those obsolete systems were still processing over 60% of their international wire transfers. "Sarah, you down there?" called Marcus Webb, the chief technology officer, from the top of the basement stairs. His voice carried the usual tone of someone who'd rather not be visiting the dungeon where forgotten technology went to die. "Always here," Sarah replied, without looking up from her screens. 3 monitors displayed scrolling data that would have looked like gibberish to most people, but to her trained eye, every line of code told a story. Marcus descended the stairs reluctantly, his expensive suit looking out of place among the industrial surroundings. "Board meeting in an hour. They're asking about security upgrades again. Need you to put together one of those reports that says everything's fine down here." Sarah finally turned to face him. "Everything is fine. These systems are more secure than the new ones." "Right, well, just make it sound official. You know how they are about anything that wasn't built this decade." Marcus glanced around the basement with barely concealed disdain. "Sometimes I wonder why we even keep this stuff running." "Because it works," Sarah said simply. After Marcus left, Sarah returned to her monitors. But she wasn't just maintaining legacy systems. The screens showed real-time global financial data flows, intrusion detection algorithms, and behavioral analysis patterns that would have impressed even the most sophisticated cybersecurity firms. Her obsolete setup was actually monitoring threats across 17 different networks simultaneously. At exactly 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time, her primary alert system triggered. Not the gentle chime that indicated routine maintenance needs, but the sharp, urgent tone that meant someone was actively attacking their network. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard with practiced precision, her years of training at Langley coming back like muscle memory. The attack was sophisticated, more sophisticated than anything Meridian had faced before. Multiple entry points, coordinated timing, and attack patterns that suggested military-grade training. But what caught Sarah's attention wasn't the complexity, it was the signature. She'd seen this exact methodology before, 15 years ago, when she was hunting a group called the Digital Liberation Front for the CIA. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown number. "Phoenix 7 still watching?" A double quote. Only 3 people in the world knew that call sign, and 2 of them were dead. Agent Alpha was supposed to be in federal prison. Sarah's fingers moved across her keyboard with lethal precision. The hackers had made their first mistake. They'd assumed the legacy systems were unmonitored. In reality, Sarah had spent 3 years turning them into the most sophisticated honeypot in financial cybersecurity. Every move the attackers made was being recorded, analyzed, and traced back to its source. "Sarah!" Marcus's voice echoed down the stairs, panic clear in every syllable. "We need you upstairs now. Everything's going crazy." The main floor of Meridian Financial Group had transformed into a war zone. Executives crowded around monitors displaying red error messages, their faces pale with terror. Phone calls flooded in from clients reporting unauthorized transactions. The company's stock price was dropping in real time on financial news networks. "How bad is it?" demanded CEO Richard Hawthorne. A man who'd built his reputation on calm leadership but now looked like someone watching his empire crumble. "Bad," replied Marcus, sweat beading on his forehead. "They're in everything. Customer accounts, wire transfer systems, even our backup servers. It's like they have administrative access to our entire network." Sarah stood quietly in the corner, observing. This wasn't random. The attack was too precise, too targeted. Someone with inside knowledge was coordinating this assault. "What about our cybersecurity firm?" Hawthorne asked desperately. "Where's Blackstone Defense?" "They've been trying to stop it for 2 hours," Marcus replied. "Their team leader says he's never seen anything like this. The attackers are staying one step ahead of every countermeasure." On the main display screen, a message appeared in bright red letters. "Meridian Financial Group. You have 30 minutes to transfer $50 million to the following cryptocurrency wallets, or we release all client data and continue draining accounts." The room erupted in chaos. Board members shouted conflicting orders while executives frantically called their contacts at the FBI and Treasury Department. Nobody noticed Sarah calmly walking back toward the basement stairs. "Wait," called Jennifer Walsh, the chief operating officer. "Sarah, what about the legacy systems? Are they compromised too?" Sarah paused at the stairwell entrance. "Not yet, but they will be if this continues. Can you protect them?" For the first time all day, Sarah smiled. "I can do better than that." Back in her basement domain, Sarah's true expertise emerged. Her fingers danced across multiple keyboards simultaneously, executing commands that would have taken most security experts hours to implement. She wasn't just defending against the attack. She was preparing to hunt the hunters. The Digital Liberation Front thought they were invisible, bouncing their signals through 17 different countries and using advanced encryption to mask their identities. What they didn't know was that Sarah Chen had been tracking their leader, known only as Architect, since 2009. She'd been close to capturing him when budget cuts forced the CIA to reassign her to domestic counterintelligence. 3 years ago, when Meridian offered her the legacy systems position, she'd seen an opportunity, not just for a quiet retirement from government service, but for something more strategic. The financial sector was increasingly becoming the primary target for cyber terrorists, and Sarah knew that eventually, her old enemies would come hunting in her new territory. Her screens now displayed the attackers' real-time locations, thanks to tracking algorithms she'd embedded in the legacy systems they'd foolishly ignored. Architect was operating from a server farm in Estonia. His team of 12 specialists were scattered across 6 countries, each believing they were anonymous and untraceable. Sarah opened a secure communication channel she hadn't used in 15 years. The encryption was military-grade, requiring biometric confirmation and a passcode that changed every 30 seconds. "Control, this is Phoenix 7. Request immediate authorization for active cyber pursuit." The response came within 60 seconds. "Phoenix 7, you've been dark for 3 years. Confirm identity with verification protocols." Sarah provided the required information, including details about operations that officially never existed. After another tense minute, Control responded, "Authorization granted. All resources at your disposal. Target priority. Critical." What happened next would never appear in any official reports or public records. Using access privileges that technically didn't exist anymore, Sarah launched a counterattack that turned the hackers' own tools against them. Every bank account they'd compromised suddenly began transferring money back to its original location. Every piece of stolen data started deleting itself from their servers. Upstairs, the executives watched in amazement as their systems began stabilizing. Account balances restored themselves, error messages disappeared, and normal operations resumed. "How is this possible?" whispered Marcus, staring at monitors that moments before had been displaying disaster. But Sarah wasn't finished. She'd identified the attack's coordination hub and was now systematically dismantling the entire Digital Liberation Front network. 15 years of preparation had led to this moment, not just stopping an attack, but eliminating the threat permanently. Her secure phone buzzed again. This time the message read, "Impossible. Phoenix 7 was retired." Sarah typed her response carefully. "Phoenix 7 doesn't retire. She evolves." Within 6 hours, law enforcement agencies across 12 countries were simultaneously raiding locations that Sarah had pinpointed. The Digital Liberation Front, which had operated with impunity for over a decade, was being systematically dismantled by someone they'd believed no longer existed. Architect made one final desperate attempt to salvage his operation, launching a massive distributed denial of service attack against Meridian's servers. But Sarah was ready. The legacy systems she'd been maintaining weren't obsolete at all. They were a sophisticated trap that had been waiting for exactly this moment. The counterattack she unleashed didn't just stop the hackers. It traced back through their network and delivered a digital payload that would ensure they never operated again. Every cryptocurrency wallet they'd used to store stolen funds was drained, and the money automatically distributed to cybercrime victim compensation funds. At 11:47 p.m., Sarah received a final message on her secure channel. Phoenix 7, target neutralized. Outstanding work. Control sends congratulations and a reminder that this conversation never happened. She deleted the entire communication thread and sat back in her chair, surrounded by quietly humming servers that had just helped her save the global financial system from one of its most dangerous threats. Upstairs, CEO Hawthorne was giving interviews to financial news networks, praising Meridian's robust cybersecurity infrastructure and cutting-edge defensive capabilities. He had no idea that their salvation had come from a woman in the basement whom most executives couldn't pick out of a lineup. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work to find Marcus waiting by her desk with a confused expression. "Sarah, I need to ask you something," he said carefully. "Yesterday, during the attack, our external security consultants said they detected some kind of advanced countermeasure system they'd never seen before. Military-grade stuff. They're asking where it came from." Sarah looked up from her screens with the same mild expression she'd worn for 3 years. "Probably just the legacy systems working as designed. They're more sophisticated than people realize." "Right." Marcus nodded slowly, clearly not entirely satisfied with the explanation. "Well, whatever happened, the board is impressed. They're talking about giving you a commendation." "That's not necessary," Sarah replied. "I was just doing my job." After Marcus left, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Her secure phone displayed a news alert. International cybercrime ring dismantled in coordinated global operation. The article mentioned that authorities had been assisted by an anonymous cybersecurity expert, whose identity remained classified. Agent Alpha was in federal custody. The Digital Liberation Front was finished, and Meridian Financial Group's clients would never know how close they'd come to losing everything. Sarah Chen, the forgotten woman in the basement, had accomplished what an entire industry of cybersecurity firms couldn't. But the best part was that she could go back to being invisible, monitoring the digital landscape from her basement office, ready for the next threat that inevitably would come. Because in a world increasingly dependent on technology, someone had to stand guard in the shadows. Sometimes, the greatest victories are the ones no one ever hears about.